Hello my crafty friends, this is Cassie and welcome back for another YouTube video. Today I have just a fun slimline card, no reason at all, just wanted to make it. And I'm going to be using some Trinity Stamps products. This first stamp that I have is called Summertime Sentiments. It goes perfectly with our Shellabration stamp and matching die set. These are new to Trinity Stamps. And then I'm also going to be pulling in the Slimline stitched dies. Perfect. And then we're also going to be using the Waving Hello stencil. I've showed that before. I've got some paper cut down for what we need, and then I'm also going to be using the Slimline envelopes die, along with this specialty paper by Tonic called Warm Dahlia. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So this first piece of cardstock that I don't have it trimmed down perfectly, but I am going to mark where my stencil is roughly going to be because I'm going to ink blend. And I'm going to ink blend using some Simon Hurley inks. This first one is Minty Fresh. And it's very light color. It's a minty fresh color. And I thought it would be really nice as just a base. You'll notice I'm using some brushes. I haven't used these before. These are the Trinity Stamps brushes. And Miles is in here saying hello, which is very unusual. I mean, he will say hello, but typically he doesn't sit there that long. Now he does his typical Miles where he's like, no, you're doing it wrong, and puts his paws up in there. But yeah, so we're just putting down a wash of that Minty Fresh, and it's a little bit splotchy right now, but I really don't mind that. And that might be just because of the paper that I'm using, but I don't mind that it's doing that because I'm going to go over the top of that with my stencil. So here I'll grab out the stencil, and there's two parts to this stencil. I'm going to put down the first part. I'll grab out some purple tape, tack down my paper, and then I'll also tack down the stencil on top of it. But as I was saying, you'll notice that I am using some Trinity Stamps brushes. I'll talk a little bit more about them later. They're like your typical brushes that you might use. I think they're definitely better than any of the makeup brushes that I have used in the past. All right, this next color, just to let you know, is called Tropical Tango. So it's a little bit darker. But back to the brushes, the reason I decided to get these, because I actually went ahead and bought enough for one for every color family. And I know that might seem excessive to some. If you are just a casual crafter, you can get by with one or two of these brushes, just using the makeup brushes that you might want or that you have, and it's going to be fine. You wouldn't need to buy like I did, but I am creating every day pretty much, and with that in mind, cleaning off the brushes, sometimes I don't do the best job of it, and so I was ending up getting some carryover into my ink pads, and I didn't want that. All right, that second color that I went over the top with was the Minty Fresh again. So this is the tray that I got. This tray is new. It's magnetic. And those little color things underneath, those are magnetic as well. So those will stick to your board. And like I said, I went ahead and got them in all the different colors. The tray comes separate. The little magnetic pieces come separate. And then you can buy each of the brushes a little bit separate as well. So like I said, I invested in this because I craft every day. All right, so let's get back to the card itself. I'm going to grab out that stitched die. This is not the biggest one. This is the second biggest one. I'm going to tack that down with a little bit of purple tape, and then I'll bring in the little 3-window die that comes in this set, and I'll tack that down with a little more purple tape and run that through my die cutting machine. And you'll see on top there, that is what I come out with. I am inking up my stamps using some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm stamping that onto Express It cardstock. I'll stamp it a couple times, and then because I want, a decent amount of coverage, because this is a slimline, I'm going to stamp this twice. So I'll have 2 octopus, and then I'll also have 2 of the crabs. So we'll stamp both of those a couple different times, and then I also go in and stamp the present that is in this set. I stamp it a bunch of times because octopus has a lot of little tentacles. For my colors for my crab, I went a little less traditional. We're using some blue green. So this first color is blue green 5-7. I'm just putting down a wash of that. That is actually my lightest color, and I am going to do a 3-color blend. Now, I typically like to go lightest to darkest. If you've watched me at all, you know that that's what I'll typically do. It just seems to blend better for me. And that's why I put down that wash of color. The second color that I'm bringing in is BG07, so that is my mid-tone. And with a bigger image like this, you can get away with 3-color blends. So that's my mid-tone, and I'm just putting down color where I think it would look good. I have no real rhyme or reason to where I put my shading. My darkest color is BG78. And you know, you really can't go off the cap because that looks so dark if you look at those three colors together just by their caps. This is why it's so important to have swatches. This way you can see what the colors actually look like on the paper that you use. So I have these swatched out on a hex chart from Sandy Allnock, and that has been extremely helpful in figuring out my colors. For his shell, we're going to start with some Y28. It's basically a gold color, I mean without having a bunch of shimmer. And so I'm just going to color the entire shell with that. And I will use 3 colors on this as well. My next color will be E44. Like I said, not necessarily probably like what you would traditionally color your little crabs, but you know, it works. And then our darkest color is E87, which if you look at that cap, that looks even lighter than the E44. But again, this is why swatches are so important. For his mouth, we're going to do R46. And then we're also going to bring in the R59, which isn't that dark, but it works. Now let's move on to the octopus. We again will have 3 colors. That first one we're starting with is G05. And we're just going to put down a whole wash with the G05 all over him. But I do have a fun story to share with you while I'm coloring because, you know, I've already told you what it is that I'm doing with my tones. So you saw Miles earlier. I have a funny story. He is my wild child. He is all over the place, loves his toys, gets bored very easily with his toys, and so we are constantly having to buy new toys for this kid because he's a trip. He gets bored, and so yeah, we're constantly having to check out, you know, different toys for him. And we do have a little toy box for him as well. Well, he and Max, but Miles is the one you'll come out and you'll see his little rear end sticking out up into the air because he is trying to find the toy he wants. But the other day we were playing. I had one of those toys that's on a stick and a string, and it had like bells and things on it. It's a little fish with some hemp and whatnot. And he was jumping, and he was just going crazy, just jumping and trying to get it. And then out of the blue, so I was holding in my right hand, I was holding a glass of red wine. And I am doing this with my right hand out in front of me, or in my left hand I had the wine, the right hand I was flicking around the toy. And out of nowhere, because he's also still a little clumsy, he comes jumping into the air and like karate kicks the wine glass. I had wine all over me, all over my couch. It was a sight to behold, and I was like, oh my goodness. So we cleaned it up, and thankfully you really can't tell on my couch that happened, but yeah, so you're not safe holding anything or having anything around because the toy was not even near my left arm, and there he was karate kicking the glass out of my hand because he gets so rambunctious. He's a trip. All right, I did decide to color in their mouths, so I'm just using some C's that I have. This is C6, and then I'll come in with some C8. And it looks a little funny when I bring in the C8, but then when I blend it out, it looks so much better. So I'll do that for all the mouths, and then we'll move on to coloring the presents. I decided to color all the presents the same, so they're all going to be with a YR16, so I'll just have a wash of that on the present itself. And then I will bring in a YR18 for my darker tone. And then I'm going to come back in with that Y28 for the ribbon. And then we'll bring in the E87 as the darker tone. And then we'll blend that out with the Y28 just a little bit so that we do have some shadowing and shading. To add just a little bit of sparkle to our presents, we are going to take a Spectrum Noir Crystal Clear pen, and we will just put that over the tops of the ribbon, and I'll show you it's nice and glittery, so we do have some shine. It's kind of fun. And then we'll grab all the matching dies, tack that down with a little bit of purple tape on all those, and then run that through my die cutting machine to have all those die cut out. For my sentiments, I did grab one from the Summertime Sentiment, and this one says Shell Yeah. And then the other one comes from the Shellabration set, and that one just says Let's Shellabate. I just thought it was perfect, right? So we've got the Shell Yeah and Let's Shellabate, and I'm stamping those with some Versamark ink, which is just some clear sticky ink, over some black cardstock, and then I'll cover that with my white alabaster embossing powder by Brutus Monroe. And then once that's all covered the way I want it covered, we'll grab our heat gun and then we're going to heat that until that powder melts. So it'll be good and smooth and melted and ready to be trimmed down. I'll trim that down using my guillotine trimmer, and the Let's Shellabration actually has a die that goes around it, which is really cool. And then the other one I just kind of cut down. My card base is just some blue cardstock that I had in my kit. I think it's by Basil. And I cut it down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches, and I'm scoring it at 3.5 inches. This is the size I like to make, so it'll be 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. That seems to work really well with the envelope die. For my frame, I do have some Arteza foam tape. Any foam tape would probably work, so I'm just trimming this down. I'm going to put this all over that background because I want that to be just popped up a little bit, and then I'll peel off all the release paper on all the foam tape that I have on that background, and I'll center that over the top of my card base. And I like how that blue and the different colors that I used for my blending look together. So we'll put that down, and then we're going to grab some liquid glue to put our squares back in there. So those will be recessed, which is kind of cool. I didn't want to not use those. So we'll put those back there, all 3 of them. And I love the stitching detail on this. It's just a fun die to have. I love how all these companies are coming out with all these different options for your slimline cards. There's just so many fun little options that you have. And yeah, so it's great. Then to put down our little critters, we're going to use some foam tape and some liquid glue because parts of them will hang over the edges that are popped up on foam tape, and the other parts will go over those recessed bits, like our little octopus here. Same thing with our crabs, so I'll peel off the release paper on those, which is extremely staticky. And this one will just need a little bit of glue on his tail, and then we'll pop him down. And then for our other little guy, he already has some on him as well. So we'll peel off his release paper once I kind of decide how I want him to look. And then we'll stick him down also. So it's fun. We've got crab, octopus, crab. And then we're going to take the presents. We're going to just put 3 on the front. We'll put 1 on one of the tentacles. And then we're going to put some foam tape on the back of one of them for this little crab to hold. And then we'll do the same thing for the other little crab to hold one. And then we'll put our sentiments down. So doing that, we're just going to use that same Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue that we've been using. So it'll say, "Shell, yeah, let's celebrate." I love that. Too clever. And then, you know, I had to decorate the inside. I just could not decorate the inside, right? So we'll grab our liquid glue and we'll take our last little octopus here and we'll put him on the side. Still plenty of room to write to the recipient. And I don't use a sentiment on the inside either. I just decided having this little octopus and 5 presents were plenty. I just thought that was so super fun. And there isn't so much dimension on the front that you couldn't write on that upper part. So there, like I said, there's plenty of room to write to the recipient. You wouldn't just have to stick to the lower half of the card, although you could. But I've just been loving decorating the insides. It's just like a whole nother surprise for the recipient to get. So not only do they have a handmade outside, but then they open it up and you've decorated the inside too. How fun is that? So I'll trim off that excess, which isn't much. And then we can't stop there. We have to use some embellishments. So I have some embellishments by Trinity, and these are the bubble blower, little flat backed. They're not sequins, but they are bubbles, and they're just so cool. So I stuck those down. And here is our finished card. I love how that turned out. And we also have our matching envelope. And if you haven't seen me do those before, you can head back to my channel. I'm going to go ahead and try to make a list of all the slimline cards that I've made for those that are interested. But yeah, it works perfectly, so you can stick that right inside your envelope. And not only that, but for those of you that do end up making envelopes out of that specialty card or specialty paper by Tonic, Trinity has also come out with slimline clear envelopes. So you could put that all into a clear envelope if you wanted, or you could very easily just take your card and put it in a clear envelope. You wouldn't even have to make an envelope if you didn't want to, and that will go through the mail just fine. So I'm super excited to send these out. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you have not already done so. I typically have 3 to 4 videos a week, and I would love it if you kept coming by. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.